welcome to One on One, the series where we talk to some of your favorite hospitality pioneers. Today we are here with Naim Maadad, founder and CEO of Gates Hospitality. Hi Naim.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm extremely well, thank you.
It is so good to have you on the hot seat today. I'm very excited to do this with you. You've been called a lot of things.
Understatement.
Yes, you have been called hospitality heavyweight pioneer. Some even call you an F&B godfather. Recently, you've been named the Lifetime Achievement Award winner. But I want to know who you are. So who is Naim?
I hope you have a few hours to spare. It's a long story.
I have time if you have time.
It's a long story. Look, my life really evolves around hospitality, and whilst the last 5-8 years have been heavily focusing on food and beverage, there is a pre-life, and it's always in hospitality. So before the Gates chapter, my life was always with hotels on a global, international level. I was holding a couple of very senior titles with Six Senses on an MD level for a global position. Same with Alan Tara, MD for a certain region, large region. So it's probably fair to say the blood that actually circulates in Naim's body is all about hospitality at a luxury level. As a matter of fact, my 11 years with Conrad Hilton, my nickname was Mr. Quality. I was specialising in openings around the globe, and I was also put into some amazing properties that had certain expectations from consumers, from business partners, stakeholders, as well as owners, in order to launch the business right and pave the way for the brands.
I love that. So you basically, the rumors are true, you bleed hospitality.
They, not rumours, they actually, for those who know me well enough, it really does entail my life. And I was born into a family that actually had hospitality venues. My uncle back in Adelaide had a chain of restaurants, many successful brands. And really I was behind the bar, I was a barista, I was on a deep fry, I was changing kegs, and I had to serve. It's been from a very young age. And as a matter of fact, I did 2 years of economics in uni because I wanted to get out of the hospitality sector. This is at a very young age. And one fine day, I packed up, left the theatre, and I went back home and I thought, I love politics, and I still do today, but I'm not a politician. Because as you know very well, I say it as it is, and that's not a quality of a politician.
No.
Hence, decided to do cordon bleu and back into the hospitality at a very deep level. Unfortunately, I've done time in Japan, in Tokyo, some amazing hotels opening as well. I've done time in Bangkok, I've done time in Saudi, done time in Bahrain, done time in Singapore, Australia of course, and UAE for a very long time across multiple disciplines. So if you look at my career, hotels, resorts, luxury angle, spa and wellness, holistic wellness, and food and beverage, as a lot of the UAE people know me as an F&B specialist, but by no means am I only an F&B guy. My career spans across hospitality, across every angle of the hospitality. And recently with my UAE RG appointment as a treasurer, really it's about making sure that we share our experiences, and the reason that I'm participating with Australian Business Council as a chairperson, the UAE as a treasurer, making sure that I actually give back. This is my CSR to the community. This is my CSR contribution to the next wave of entrepreneurs and industry professionals.
And a valuable contribution at that. I want to go back a little bit to your younger years. I know, which is not that far away.
It's very far back. I can hardly remember.
You're originally from Australia.
Yes.
So I'd like to get a sense of where that F&B bug bit you first. How old you were? When did you know that you wanted to pursue a career within hospitality?
Sure. Look, it's a very valid question. And Australia, until today, it's the capital of amazing wines, amazing restaurants, a lot of homegrown brands, and the coffee scene has been phenomenal. So part of the culture, and if you watch any Australian series on TV, whether be it Neighbours or be it Home and Away, every time you see a shot of over a dinner, there's always a bottle of wine. So for us growing up, there was always a bottle of wine at the table. It wasn't a taboo, or didn't have to drink, but there was always a bottle. And who would like to have a glass could have a glass. So hospitality is deeply enriched in the culture of what we do. Having a Lebanese descent as well, so my grandma may she rest in peace. She's always been very hospitable as well, and kind of shared another aspect. And for me, you know, cultures and the fact that you have multi-cultures, I think helps a lot understanding the globe rather than any particular culture. So I've always been intrigued, and the fact that today, if you really analyze hospitality as an industry, as a sector, it entails fashion, right? It entails lifestyle, it entails travel, it entails media. So it's one of those careers that if you do it well, you're actually covering across multiple disciplines, multiple channels, including economy. Our contribution to the economy today, I mean, if I take this market, very powerful. Double-digit contribution to the economy, to the GDP, which, so I'm trying today in my life, and I'm not answering your question, but I'll go back to that. I'm trying today to make sure that everyone understands that this is not actually a job. This is a career if you do it well. And it should be regarded as a career. So it's not about coming to the UAE, getting a job, or coming to the Middle East, getting a job and sending money home. People should be coming here, paving the way for their careers. And whilst people have to start at an entry level, it's easy enough to develop and grow and make sure you get to see the world and enjoy the perks that come with the industry.
Naim, can I ask, because this is a very interesting point that you've just made. A lot of people do treat the UAE like a transition. They're coming here to make money, send it home, and you're saying hospitality specifically, if you treat it like a career, it can really take care of you. How can people change their mindset about just that, from treating it like a career and treating the UAE like home?
The biggest obstacle today is probably the families. Because again, if you go to your mum and dad and you say, I'd like to become a waiter or a barista, they see it as a service industry. It's not a profession. And I think our jobs today, our responsibility is to educate the family and make sure that we have that discussions, that dialogue with the families saying, look, let's identify a couple of ambassadors who have actually started here and today are flying the flag for large organizations, very successful businesses. So the shift is happening gradually, but again, I think we're fighting with many things. We're fighting with the families to understand what the career is. We're fighting with technology. Again, it's not an app-led, it's you're on your feet for 9 hours principally. We're fighting with financial institutions where you can get a job in an office. We're fighting with every other sector. So in order to attract people to our industry, we as hospitality individuals, we need to, and I'm going to use the word sexy up the industry, but we need to make sure that flexibility on times, education, career plans and growth, and last but not least, compensation, all need to be revised into say, okay, where are we in the world? Who are we competing with as far as other industries? And how do we try and compete and complement other industries? So to make sure that we have a people bank that will actually follow us and support the industry. So the reason I mentioned home and away and neighbours, it's hospitality, F&B is part of what we do daily. Every cafe, I mean the coffee today, I've just come back from Australia, the coffee scene is incredibly strong. So the coffee scene is part of everyone's day. So on the way to the office, on the way to school, on the way to uni, everyone stops at a cafe, their favourite local, and they grab a coffee. So it's a point where you stop, you engage with the barista, unlike other parts of the world, but you have a dialogue that's going on. How are you? How is the day? What's the plan for the day? Are you hitting the gym today? So it's a cultural, it's a very integral part of our culture, F&B. So I saw that as a natural entry for me, and I think a lot of it is about your personality as well. I think a lot of people are extrovert, and a lot of people are introvert. So it depends on your personality. If you feel that you can wake up every morning and say, I'm happy to talk to people, and a lot of them in different moods, different cultures, hospitality is the best place.
I want to know about how you got to be where you are today. So from being a young man in Australia to coming to the UAE, when did things really transition for you where you really saw a very high opportunity for growth within this industry?
I'm sure you've heard the saying, it's lonely at the top.
Yes.
Right? I'm one of those individuals that I don't need to be reminded of my duties, obligations, responsibilities. I am extremely well disciplined, and I know I'm sounding like I'm sitting here patting myself on the back, but it's not about that. It's about having that responsibility of saying, I don't need anyone to push me. I don't need a partner or a boss or a manager to say to me, today do A, B, C, D. I'm the other way around. I don't rest until I get whatever has to happen done next. Also, my concentration span is fairly short, so I'm constantly pushing for the next best thing, whatever that may be, without losing focus on what I'm doing currently. So I think it's making sure that you find that balance. From a very young age, I was identified as over-ambitious. Now, there's a positive to that, there's a negative with that. So I've always made a very strong awareness within me, saying that I need to make sure that if I'm regarded as that, I complete whatever I'm doing, so people don't say start, ditch, recommence. No, it's start, complete, move on. And it's been fortunate. Conrad Hilton, Six Senses, Anantara of the Mining Group, everybody that I've started, and literally within 12 months of my commencement at whatever level, I was elevated to the next role within the first 12 months of my career. My stop in Japan at the Hilton Shinjuku, which is in 800 rooms, I was the youngest hotel manager, leading a very large team, 800 rooms, 1 million food and beverage covers per year, non-Japanese speaker. The youngest department head that I would have had working alongside of me would have been the age of my father. So I think responsibility and awareness has been embedded in me from a very young age. My father passed away a few weeks before I was born, so there's always been a lot of pressure on me growing up, as in either a lawyer or a barista. That's what I always had. So there's a lot of responsibilities, and I think my way of translating that responsibility was the person that I am today.
And when did you come to the UAE?
So I was in Japan. A dear old friend of mine was actually doing the opening of Burj Al Arab. SMS'd me at the time. There was hardly anything else. There was very little apps happening at the time. He says, please check your Hotmail account. I don't know if you remember those, but they still exist. Check your Hotmail and only answer me then. There was lots of pictures of the actual tower, saying, would you like to be part of this? I was doing an amazing opening in Japan. I was extremely happy because I sentimentally and personally I connect with the Japanese culture at a very deep level.
What was it about their culture?
Look, my background has put me in good stead in understanding cultures, and the fact that I'm extremely tolerant when it comes to various cultures and various ideas engages me very, very deeply. The fact that Japanese culture would celebrate cherry blossom, would have a picnic under those. You and I would probably take a selfie today. Most of the people would take a quick snap, post it, and that's their engagement. Whereas certain cultures go to the next level. So the fact that they appreciate certain things, actually everything in life, to the next level, I could actually very much engage with that. I could relate to that, and I made me stronger individual because they saw the relationship, they saw the appreciation, they saw the fact that I genuinely actually connected, rather than it's a job, it's 2 years and then I'm moving on. No, it was a lot deeper than that. So I saw this and I'm thinking, well, this is a once of a lifetime opportunity. So I did come out for a discussion, and before leaving I had signed a contract to come back. So that was 1999. My first entry to the region.
Yeah.
So Millennium, we did the opening of Burj Al Arab, and I went back to Hilton. Principally, I went back to comfort zone, and I went back to people that actually saw me as an asset,
Right.
and valued my contribution to the organisation, rather than a new setup where everybody was kind of trying to find their space and make a change. So that was my entry to the region with the Hilton Dubai Jumeirah opening.
What did you think when you came here in 1999?
Look, I'm one of those that see ample opportunities. Today, with Gates, we're entering the African continents with hospitality services. And again, it's about finding solutions to vacuums that are there that are staring at people and saying, I need a solution. So when I came here, all I could see was the amount of opportunities, the amount of commitment from various government entities in order to deliver, and the fact that the geographical position of the country is very it's an amazing location, right? So I wanted to be here from the onset. Basically, the day I landed, the day I saw and I met the people that I was meeting, I thought this is a good place for me.
Now, when did you start Gates Hospitality?
So 2010. was actually the formation of the organization. And again, my endeavor was so many years with hotels. There's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of processes that people go through. So before you get an LPO signed, there's 5 individuals that need to see it and comment and contribute. So from the inception of an idea until execution, it probably takes 4 or 5 weeks time. Whereas I was at a stage in my life where I thought I've absorbed a lot from hotels, I've absorbed a lot from my masters, I've absorbed a lot from my international travels, my cultural engagements. I'm ready to start on my own. And it takes a lot of courage to step out from comfort, international hotels, international, to say, I'm going to do it on my own. And I did that. And I thought, worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out in 24 months' time, I can always put my hand up saying I'm ready to re-enter that arena. But here we are today, a few years down the road, and really the whole idea of Gates was, let's look at my background. It's holistic wellness, spas, food and beverage, hotels and resorts. And today, if you look at Gates, we have all of these silos up and running. We have multiple business models, we have ownership, we have operations, we have advisory across GCC, entering Africa, as I mentioned, working closely with our Asian colleagues as well, back in Australia and London. So from a startup, if you take Gates today, I genuinely believe that there aren't many hospitality discussions that happen in the region without Gates being brought into the discussion as a market leader, as an innovator, as an influencer, if I may, into the sector. And if you take the brand pillars of Gates, innovate, engage, belong, enrich, they really don't talk about commercials. We don't. And my biggest spiel to all of my team members, all of the guys who work alongside of me, is if we deliver on these brand pillars, money will come. Money will come. And again, other individuals in the publication world said to me, oh, you don't have any new stories. And I said, look, new stories aren't necessarily about new openings. You don't have to keep opening venues. I think being sustainable in such a market is a lot more powerful than actually having new openings. I think today our venues, if you take Reform, Social and Grill, it's an institution. It's an institution that when we started, we were criticised that it's probably not the right location for such a gastro pub. But here it is today. It's an extremely successful business. It's a benchmark for gastropubs. It's a place where I can assure you 9 out of 10, if you ask people in the street, will say, we've been, we love it, we go back with our dogs, with our partners, with our families, with our bosses. And that's what a business is. It's about creating a business that's long-lasting, as long as you keep renovating, as long as you keep re-engaging, as you keep relevance and authenticity, and you stay on brand. Because what I have witnessed in this market is someone opens up the road and they are very successful. You have something here and you start copying what they're doing rather than you stick to your own philosophy, which doesn't work. It doesn't work.
You mentioned the openings, new openings, new openings. I think just as quickly as F&B brands are opening, they're also closing. What do you see in the F&B landscape now that you wish you saw less of?
Look, if you stop a lot of people in the street today and speak to them, I think a lot of people would say we'd like to enter the sector. I think people see it from an end user rather than understand the depth and the complexity of the business. The business is, if a venue opens at midday, the procurement team, the setup team, the chef's team, the culinary team, everyone's been working for the last 6 hours before we actually open the doors. And people don't see that. People forget that it's hard work. You're on your feet for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours with a lot of pressure because, again, the lunch trade comes in, 2 hours, concentrated, lots of pressure, and then you have a bit of a break. Dinner service comes back. There's a lot of requirements, there's a lot of pressure. You're accountable for freshness, you're accountable for people's health, you're accountable for your colleagues. So there's a lot. And cash flow within our business, a lot of people don't know this, it's a 19-day cycle. 19 days you run out of money unless your business is solid, which is, in any other business, it's not viable. So our businesses are extremely reliant on continuing what we do and making sure there's continuity and strong base of repeat clientele base. It
used to be that the restaurant business was one of the hardest businesses to open. So if you met somebody and they were like, I'm opening up a restaurant, you'd be so afraid for them because you know, oh boy, good for you. But now it seems like everybody is opening up an F&B brand somewhere?
It's very dangerous. In my humble opinion, today the market is becoming oversaturated again. We must always remember the head count, the population that we have in the region, not including our tourism influx, right? But certain businesses, depends on your location, depends on your pricing point, depends on your concept, depends on your offering and so forth. They don't actually benefit from the tourism trade because there's no relevance. So I think when you're opening a business model, you need to understand who am I catering for, who's the audience, who are the demographics, what do they want, where's my pricing point, what is my concept, who's going to run my concept. There's so many things before opening that individuals need to consider. Because again, sadly, it's not like a store, it's not like a bank where you open at 9, you finish at 5. Our businesses, most of the trade that happens in my business, I'm not even in the business. So I'm heavily relying on my team members, I'm heavily relying on my managers, I'm heavily relying on individuals who, my duty and my responsibility is to make sure I educate, I make sure they fully grasp, understand, comprehend, and live the brand promise. Because that's the only time they can execute a service. So it's hard. Look, the industries, I think we're seeing, as you rightly said, there's a lot of openings, there's a lot of closures, there's a lot of brands that come. I think there was a brand in the marina recently that was actually out of the UK, operated for 8 weeks before they closed. 8 weeks. Sorry, that's foolish at every level.
And I mean, look, yes, there's been some amazing F&B brands that have come onto the scene and it's doing great, it's adding value, it's giving the hospitality sector something good, but there's also a lot of brands that are not doing so well and they are just opening and it's too much Instagrammable and it's too much a lot of things, right? But I want to go back to your F&B entrepreneurial journey. How would you describe it?
I think the fact that we're connected to brands and I don't have a brand that I'm going around looking to sell or to find locations for. I do business the other way around. I look at venues that are up for lease, up for grabs, up for takeover, and I say, what's in the neighborhood? What's missing from the equation? So rather than me trying to find places for Folly or Public or Ultra, is I'll look at the actual site that's available and I'll say, who's their demographics? What do they want? What's the price point? What's the volume? What's the footfall? Car parking, competition, neighbours and so forth. And then you plug a solution. I think a lot of it is common sense, but it's not about ego, because the minute you confuse eco and ego, despite the fact that there's one letter difference, eco is about understanding your economics, understanding the neighbourhood, understanding the business mix, understanding, do I have what it takes to sustain the business for 3 months in case it takes a lot longer to deliver.
How does one, like you say, know the difference between eco and ego?
This is not unique to where we are. This is global challenges that, for me, I think I'm a lucky one. A lot of people say to me, you're too humble sometimes. You're too. It's not about being humble or arrogant. It's about finding your place in life. It's like I mentioned earlier, my guys are the ones who actually run my business. They are the ones who execute a service and experience. So when you're leaving the venues, be it Folly or be it Bistro Desert or be it Six Senses, you don't speak about Naim. Yes, there's a lot of Naim Gates synergies, but it's ultimately at the end of the day when they leave, they say, all I want people to say, this was an amazing experience, good value for money. I don't want them to say cheap or expensive, good value, because what value is for you and what value is for me is
different.
Very different. Look, in the resort world, we've had many workshops saying, with our Six Senses, how do you define luxury? What is luxury? And again, depends who you ask. If you don't have money in your pocket, food becomes a luxury. If you have a lot of money, then an outside shower becomes luxury.
Well said. Very well said. Yeah.
So it's making sure you understand the market and make sure that the brand definition, the brand DNA is extremely well defined. And going back to your earlier question is, what makes us different is all of our brands are very different by design, by choice. However, they're very well defined. So in the marketplace, if you say Folly, people know what to expect. If you say Reform, people know what to expect. If you say Bistro Desert, the same. And I think that's very essential that people know what they're getting.
Yeah, distinctly. I wanted to talk to you about your F&B experience in the UAE based on ease of doing business. How easy or difficult would you say it was to establish Gates Hospitality here and add these brands underneath the group?
Yeah. So look, we had multi challenges, meaning the brand Gates didn't exist, so we had to develop the brand. We had to gain people's support and understanding of what we're trying to endeavour. That's one. And two is the market was also all about big brands. It was more about the international players coming to the market rather than homegrown.
Yeah.
I'd like to think my contribution to the industry has been that shift of you don't have to be an international brand to come and play here. As a matter of fact, local brands or homegrown brands are equally as powerful, and as we have all witnessed, today we're taking some of our brands from here into the UK, into the US, into other parts of the world. So tables have turned. But I think a lot of it is stamina, which I've referenced earlier, depth and understanding of the business, and last but not least, making sure that you work with all stakeholders, be it the government, be it DTCM, be it municipality, be it CID, to facilitate for the industry. The minute you are selfish and you're saying my business, it doesn't work. The minute you say industry-wide, everybody gains, everybody wins, and everybody supports rather than tries to slow down the whole progress. So for us, establishing Gates was a challenge. However, fortunately for me, with my last few years in the region with some very strong brands, my media contacts were very strong, my industry contacts were very strong. So whilst we're starting afresh for Gates, I still had a lot of strong relationships already established in the marketplace. So could I have done the same in Australia, entering a new market? Perhaps it would have been a bit harder. In Asia, perhaps it would have been a bit harder. But today, like I said, I'm proud to say that Gates is part of that answer to hospitality solutions at every level.
Where does the name Gates come from?
So look, Gates, when brainstorming about Gates was, what is the future? So Gates is, every time you open a gate, you think you know what's inside behind the gate, but you don't. And entering a gate, you're taking a risk, which is always my strength. I'm happy to take a risk, but I'll make sure that I'm bulletproof before I enter the gate. And I'll make sure that I have the right people around me, the right talents around me, the right knowledge, the right commercials that are required in order to deliver.
So Naim, if you can,
Sure.
I'd like you to pinpoint for me the exact moment or 2 or 3 moments when you knew, gosh, I'm going to be really good at this.
You can't limit me to 2 to 3. Look, in life, as you have witnessed my career, I've excelled in my spa and wellness domain, food and beverage, hotels, resorts, openings. Relationships with stakeholders when I was doing development for hotels was a key strength. And for me is, if you remember your origins, you remember your qualities, you remember your experience, you bank on your education. I think today you throw me into any market and you say to me a business model. I think if you take our hospitality is not too dissimilar to schooling. Today in schools you have CEOs, you don't have headmasters. It's a business model.
It's a business model.
So I think if you understand that any entity is a business entity, and who are the audience, who you're catering for, and what is the road ahead, I think you'll succeed. And like I said, I think a lot of people are happy to take a challenge, and I'm one of those, happy to put a foot forward and say, I can do this, but I need A, B, C, D in order to deliver.
Now, in total, just to have a conversation about the brands within Gates Hospitality, how many brands do you have currently within Gates Hospitality, and what's sort of in the pipeline to add to the family?
Sure. Look, I'm proud to say as well that all of our brands have been around for over 5 years. Right, so for me, it's about sustainability on the playground, continuity on the playground, and still delivering an experience that people, when they leave, they say, we like these places, we belong, and we feel that there is an enrichment every time we leave. So Folly, as you're well aware, it's a Gourmet recipient, it's a Michelin recipient, 50 Best Discovery recipient, the only independent. And I'm proud to say that we are the only independent with those 3 recognitions. Folly, moving forward with Folly, so the way that we have positioned Folly will become the umbrella brand. And under Folly, we have Folly Moo, which is a steak grill derivative business coming to Abu Dhabi in Q3 this year in a hotel. Folly will have a brasserie, Folly will have a wine library as well, but Folly will have an Asian business. Now, why am I doing that? Folly as a brand, I think it's extremely strong. It's gained all the recognition it can get as a brand. It's got some amazing pillars to deliver upon, and I'd like to develop that brand. So that's Folly. Reform, as you know, again, it's institutional gastropubs. When we opened Reform, our PR agency at the time called me and said, look, are you sure you want to use the word gastropub because it's not used in the region? And I said, look, worst case scenario, Colonel's going to slap me on the hand and then say, okay, we will not use it. But, so we started that, and Reform will continue on growing similar business models in community centres, because I think we've excelled at that. And it's all about the engagement factor, the innovation, and making sure that the community sees it as their local. And our tagline for Reform is "You're local" for that same reason. It's a place where you can go at any time of the day and you know what you're getting, and no matter who's in the group. Ultra Brasserie, which was our first baby. Again, it's a organic cafe principally based on the Australian experience that we spoke about earlier. It's a place where you go 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. If you're in the same office tower, for a coffee, for a cake, lunch, a snack. So we'll continue on growing that brand as well. And I think that brand has legs to become a GCC-wide kind of recognised cafe, which we're working on that. Bistro Dessert, again, Bistro, when we opened Bistro, I was actually in Japan on a visit. I received a call and they said, I don't know how you did it, but you've nailed a bistro in Dubai and it feels like a bistro. And I think, again, back to our story of authenticity and relevance. I think it's very important that whatever brand's above the door, we deliver on every aspect. So Bistro, we will also try and grow the brand in the region as much as possible, because there is a vacuum in that marketplace. That there aren't many bistros that do what we do well. Public downstairs, again, it's what I see is that we call it the Après-Ski Chalet. It's a place where it's noisy, it's fun, there's a raclette, there's pierrade, there is fondue, and it's, again, very unique in its business proposition. Obviously, Six Senses as a resort. The asset itself is incredible. The experience is, again, the last 3 years, Condé Nast best in the region, and we'll continue on developing the brands. So for me, it's not about adding brands, it's making sure the brands that we have that exist continue on being rejuvenated to the market and compete with what's coming onto the market. I think our depth and our strength is with what we have as a team. It's knowledge of the region, knowledge of the market, and knowledge of the supply chain organization.
Let's talk about what are your key pillars for this year.
Yeah, so look, objectives, and again, for me personally, and they translate to my business as well, of course, extremely strong. Last year was one of my objectives as well, the emotional intelligence. I think there's been a massive focus on AI, artificial intelligence. I think in our business, you can use those artificial intelligence to a certain extent, but we shouldn't lose that human touch. Orders on the menu, on your phone, menus. I think we're creating a bigger gap between brands and human. So I'm trying to go the other way around, saying, no, I want a lot more emotional intelligence. And so we are working with our teams, and we have a couple of agencies that are actually training our colleagues to make sure that we are natural at service rather than, because again, a lot of our colleagues, they come from countries where service is subservient. So we're trying to shift that mindset, saying, look, if you stand by the table, I want you to take care of the evening rather than take orders. I don't want you to take an order. We orchestrate a meal period rather than take orders. So emotional intelligence is very key for us, and that also is applicable to the next point, which is mental well-being. Again, we all have our challenges, we all have our families, we all have issues, and how do you make sure that the workplace actually understands that and supports humans in their own individual platform? So that doesn't mean that we become an institution to help. What we do is we make sure that we have support services in place for our colleagues who have an issue, who would like to come and air it, who would like to discuss it. We listen and we try and provide solutions, because again, what you're going through today, maybe your colleagues have gone through last week or last year. So there are always solutions, and I'm a genuine believer if you talk about your challenges and you open up and you know that there is a support mechanism around you, half of the problem's gone already. So we're trying to work very closely on that. And I think, again, be it health, be it family, be it culture, all of these mental kind of hesitations, it will actually obstruct you from conducting your job well. So if you have that support, we're facilitating. Emotional intelligence, mental well-being, circular economies, again, look, it's all interlinked principally. And it's more about making sure that people, when they join us, and I'll give you an example in the kitchen. When people join at a steward level, so if they leave you in 4, 5, 6 years' time and they are in the kitchen, so they moved from a pot wash into mise en place preparation and cooking and so forth, that's a massive gain. What we have done in Gates, we've impacted your life, your families, your financial position, and we've facilitated for your next role, be it with us in another venue or be it with another competition or a business partner. So for me, that circular is let's make sure that everybody gains, as well as our communities and our guests.
I mean, I must commend you for prioritizing things like emotional intelligence and mental well-being, because even in corporate organizations where you'd think they'd actually have an office with a wellness center in the building, it's very difficult to find that as a priority in a lot of businesses here, especially within hospitality, because like you said, it's very fast-paced, it's very busy, a lot of emotions, high intensity. How difficult or easy has it been for you to prioritize mental health within the business?
Look, not only is it difficult, it's not really practiced. So a lot of people don't, when you say mental, people think, well, are we not okay? So it's really defining what it is and facilitating that. Don't come to me if you have a stomach issue. Don't come to me if you have a headache. That's not that's not the intent. The intent is if you're feeling unease because you've shifted from another organization, you're not fitting in with your team, if there is any potential bullying, let's be open. Let's talk about these things. Let's stable them. If you're missing your family and if your mum's unwell, your father's unwell, we want to make sure that we become an extended family to these individuals. We don't have solutions for everything. I'm not suggesting that we can solve all. But I'm also saying that for the size of Gates, for our size, it's probably easier than large organizations because we're still connected. And proud to say, from the inception of Gates in 2010 until today, I have people that are still there from day one, which is very unusual, not only for the UAE, for the industry in general. Look, the last point is again a very painful point for me, because again, I'm attending so many events and so many conferences, and I'm on stage, and we're often asked about the sustainability topic, and the immediate answer is yes, we don't have any more plastic bags or plastic straws or plastic cutlery. And for me, if people are still using those examples, they shouldn't be on stage. With all due respect to my industry colleagues or those who are posing the questions, I think today the onus is really on ourselves to make sure that we take it to the next level. And sustainability is not about plastic only. Sustainability is a massive topic, and we should be really engaging. We should be absorbing. We should be leading by example. Again, for a lot of our colleagues who are working with us, they actually add a lot of value, because back in certain countries they practice a lot more sustainability by sheer necessity rather than anything else. So we have a learning as an organization. So how do we adapt and make sure they're relevant to our business and vice versa? And when they go back home, just a simple example, when you're brushing your teeth, I say to people, why do you keep the water running when you're shaving? It's just simple examples. My own kids today, if I'm brushing my teeth and I'm running the water, I get told off, and we should be practicing at that level. So there's nothing too small, nothing too big, but we should be looking at menu listings. Where is it coming from? Is it sitting on a plane for 10 hours? Can we get it from another resource? Our food waste, where is it going? Are we contributing to a foundation here in the region? Our uniforms that don't actually fit anybody, or we all of a sudden decided to change our uniforms, where are they? Are they becoming rags for the kitchen cleaners, or are they going to a community where they can benefit out of? I think sustainability has to be absorbed at a very fundamental level. We have an organization that comes and picks up our oil. That oil gets reused and refiltered and ends up in airplane fuel. So again, these are massive changes, because we use very little oil, but large organizations where they have a deep fry component that's ongoing 24/7, you can only imagine on their contribution to that success story and so forth. So these are the 4 real objectives that I'm trying to make sure that I bring into discussions, bring into topics, bring into any agenda that I'm participating in, to make sure that we are widening the scope of what it is as hospitality. And I think, again, the commitment that we have is not only for the next generation, it's a commitment for Mother Earth. What are we doing? What's our contribution towards that? It's not only about the bank account or the longevity of the company, it's about longevity of the planet.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Without a planet, there is no money, there is no businesses, there is nothing. And I agree with you completely about sustainability within the sector is not about the plastic straws anymore. We need to move on from these, you know, non-plastic initiatives because it's deeper than that. The problem is bigger than that. I want to ask you a question. If you could give advice to a young, budding F&B entrepreneur that's aspiring to be as successful as you one day, what does it take to develop a successful F&B brand in this region?
The answer is very simple. It's not only about F&B. I think if you're entering any new business, just make sure you know what it takes to run the business. Make sure you do your due diligence on commercialism, on operations, on human capital, in order to understand, can I sustain this and do I have what it takes to thrive? That's one. Two, what's very important is, unlike any other business, our businesses are measured and benchmarked by third parties, not by ourselves. We don't go out and rate our brands.
Right.
So we need to make sure that what we communicate is very clear, very transparent, and last but not least is very relevant to what we say, because what we post on social today, if people come in and see a different experience, then we're miserably failing. And you see a lot that you see some amazing posts and you go and say, what's this place all about? And there's no relevance at all between what you've seen and what you're experiencing, and that's very dangerous. Hence, look, we have up to 18% of the business that closes within the first 12 months of operation. That's a very high number, and you can only imagine the damage from a commercial perspective that happens to the economy, the job losses that happen with the people who actually enter those, the tarnished image that you get with real estate, empty venues and so forth. So we need to make sure that people understand before they enter the business, do I have what it takes in order to enter that?
And do you know what it takes? Yeah, are you aware of how much of sweat and, you know, tears go into this? What is your next great adventure?
My next great adventure, and I think again what I'm trying to do in my personal life, my professional life, is to make sure that I find a happy medium between living and performing. And I think I'm fortunate enough in my life where I can dictate that rather than have an office environment or a culture that dictates that for me. But I think very important, no one's going to look after you or no one's going to look after me. We have to do that ourselves, and I'm putting that to practice. I'm making sure that my life is balanced at a level, not 50-50, not 40-60, balanced where it matters. Meaning my personal time, my business time, my golf time, my wine collection time, my car collection time, it's important. The reason I say this, it's we need motives, we need a drive. So if you don't have that drive, if you're just doing mundane roles day in, day out, what happens? Output?
Flat.
Flat, if not below flat. So I think people need those excitements in lives. People need those goals in order to say, goal ticked, what's the next best one? And hopefully those goals are elevated every time. So business grows, individual grow, your colleagues grow alongside of you, and then last but not least, there's a fulfillment sense, which is very important.
So let me ask you a final question, Naim, before we get to the real fun stuff. What is that thing for you that keeps you motivated, that fuels your passion, that you do for yourself, that allows you to be who you are in business?
My freedom can't be measured, right? It can be, you can't put a price on it, you can't put a value on it. So freedom for me is, the more free I am, the more innovative I am. And I'm, as I alluded to earlier, I'm one of those that I actually use my freedom to develop and grow. So I think if you know that freedom is not to be wasted, that's the biggest advice I can give to anybody. Your downtime should be about appreciating what you have, valuing what you have, but also coming up with the next plan of what you can build on what you have already. And I think I use my freedom very well. I travel extensively, and my time on planes is not a word of a lie. Every time I get off a plane, I have a new objective.
So we have a fun little segment on this show, and it's called rapid fire questions. So I'm going to just throw some this or that questions for you, and you're just going to answer back what resonates with you the most.
Careful. what you ask.
Day or night?
Night.
Sugar or spice?
Spice.
Red or white?
Red.
Guacamole or salsa?
Salsa.
City view or ocean view?
Ocean.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Naim. That
Thank
was
you.
so much fun. Thank you.
Thanks very much.